know how to participate in today's event. First, all lines are on mute. To alter your view of today's speakers, please select View in the top corner, where you can choose between Gallery or Speaker View. If you experience any technical difficulties at any point during our presentation, please explain your problem through the chat feature, and we'll try our best to address the issue. Please subscribe to New Jersey OAG on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Flickr, and LinkedIn for the latest updates on news, information, and resources from our office. Now, I'd like to hand things off to Acting Attorney General Andrew Bruck.
Hey everyone, and thanks Tara for opening this up. So my name is Andrew Bruck. I'm the Acting Attorney General here in New Jersey, and I want to thank all of you for joining us here today for this really important webinar. So when I became the Acting Attorney General back in July, I set three priorities, issues that I care a lot about, and those are gun violence, policing policy, and racial justice. And in order to push forward those priority areas, we tried to identify a number of affirmative policies that we could issue to law enforcement across New Jersey that would help retain New Jersey's status as a national leader on policing issues. And I'm delighted to say that earlier this week, we issued our three really important policies that apply to all 38,000 state, county, and local law enforcement officers in New Jersey. We issued a policy regulating the use of no-knock warrants. We issued a policy helping law enforcement agencies diversify their ranks, including through recruitment and promotion. And we also issued a policy on the right to record, which is what we're going to be talking about here today. And part of the reason why I'm so delighted by the right to record policy is that we did it in partnership with a number of community groups that we work very closely with, including the Institute for Social Justice and the ACLU. And I'm really happy that we're doing this event today with Tess Borden and Bruck Lewis from those two organizations to talk about the policy. And one of the things that we realize and recognize is that it's not enough to just get together a group of folks from law enforcement and the community to write new policies. Once you develop those policies, you need to make sure that the community understands and you get out there and educate as many folks as possible so they know how to take advantage of the rights that are available to them and to make sure that law enforcement complies with the directives and policies that we issue. And that's exactly why we're doing today's session. So I want to welcome you all for being here. Thank you so much for doing this. And I'll turn it over to Bryn Whittle, the Director of our Community Affairs, Director of Community Engagement and Senior Counsel to the Acting Attorney General. Bryn?
Thank you so much, General, for that kind introduction. I appreciate being here with you today to talk about this important directive. Today we have a very distinguished and esteemed panel that will join Acting AG Bruck with this discussion. We have Theodore Stevens, Acting Essex County Prosecutor. We have Brian O'Hara, Director of the Newark Department of Public Safety. We have Bruck Lewis, Associate Counsel, New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, and Tess Borden, Staff Attorney with the American Civil Liberties Union of New Jersey. Welcome to you all today, and I'm going to ask you, if you have not done so, to please turn on your camera. We want to see you. Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today. So without further ado, because today is a Friday, and we're thrilled to have our audience here, and we're thrilled to have all of you here. We know, people are ready to kind of wind down for the weekend. So we want to jump right into the discussion on our new directive. So I'm going to turn to General Bruck with the first question to kick it off. While the full policy is available online, and we should be posting it in the chat, if the link, if it's not there already, could you highlight some of the main aspects of the policy for our audience?
I'd be happy to. So the directive includes two components. The first is about the parameters of the right of civilians to record law enforcement officers. And the second component is about the seizure of recording devices. So on that first part, the directive makes it very clear that civilians have the right to record, film, videotape, photograph, complain about, comment on the actions of law enforcement officers engaged in their official duties in public, so long as those civilians are in a place where they have the legal right to be. And as long as that is the case, law enforcement officers cannot retaliate against the civilians who are engaging in those lawful practices. That means that law enforcement officers cannot engage in an investigative stop or demand ID or threaten to arrest the person. They have to allow the individual, the civilian, the opportunity to record officers engaged in their official duties. So that's the first component. The second component governs the seizure of recording devices. And there it's pretty simple, which is that law enforcement officials cannot seize recording devices of civilians or recording officers without a warrant, except in the narrowest of circumstances. But we lay this out in greater detail in the directive, which is available online and now applies to all 38,000 state, county, and local law enforcement officials in New Jersey.
Thank you. So I want to kind of turn to Tess Borden and Bruck Lewis. I know you did some work with our community members and in preparation for this. And what is your sense, or what was your sense about how well community members understood their First Amendment rights in this area?
Sure, so I can get us started. So first, thanks so much for having me, and thank you again to the Attorney General for issuing this policy. We know it's going to be a really important step forward in promoting police accountability throughout the state. So I think when most people think about the First Amendment, they probably think about the protection it provides to protest and certain types of speech, but not as many people know that the First Amendment does also protect the right to receive information and ideas, which we now also know also includes the right to record police conducting their official duties. But we know that even if somebody does know that they have a right to record police, they might not always know exactly what that means in practice. So police encounter recording bystanders in so many types of situations. And even if the police officer doesn't specifically ask someone to stop recording, they still might be doing things that intimidate or discourage people from recording. So for example, an officer might see somebody recording and then go over and ask them for identification, or even just start questioning them to provide a reason for why they're recording. And it's these types of interactions that can have a real chilling effect on First Amendment activities, so we need to be taking steps to prevent them. And I think that's why this policy is really so important, because it not only educates both officers and citizens on the fact that there is a right to record police, but it really goes on to clarify what that actually means in practice. And it provides specific procedures that will ensure that this First Amendment right is fully protected. And I think we can't forget how critical this really is, because we continue to see that citizen recordings are providing crucial evidence in cases of police misconduct. But for the bravery of recording bystanders like Darnella Frazier, we might not have known the truth about the murder of George Floyd, which was originally reported as a medical incident. So here in New Jersey, as we're continuing to strive to increase transparency and build trust, it's so critical that we empower community members to hold law enforcement accountable through exercising these First Amendment rights, like the ability to criticize and record police.
Right, and so what I'm hearing is it's definitely bridging the gap, and it was definitely needed. So thank you. Tess Borden, did you want to add anything to that?
I'd love to. Thanks for that invitation, and thank you again for having us be a part of this important conversation, and Attorney General for taking this really important step. We commend you for it. The ACLU of New Jersey, as you said, Bryn, joined ISJ this spring in explicitly calling on the Attorney General to take exactly this action. And we published a policy brief, which is available on our websites in May on the anniversary of George Floyd's murder. The need for this policy came from three places. The first, as Bruck spoke to, was recognizing that recording police activity not only is protected First Amendment speech and rights, but is also critical to accountability, to transparency, to our ability to know what happens and to criticize such conduct. And so it was in honor of George Floyd and in recognition of the anti-racist police reforms that New Jersey and other states are looking to undertake right now that we called for this action. And again, I want to say we commend the office for taking it. The second reason that we asked for this policy is that there is a real problem to fix. Even though the First Amendment and jurisprudence that applies in New Jersey clearly protects the right to record, and as the Attorney General said, to even criticize police conduct, we know that too many officers aren't aware of those obligations and too many civilians aren't aware of those rights. The ACLU of New Jersey over the years has actually represented a number of people and has heard of other cases in which a civilian was improperly charged for obstruction of justice simply for recording the police. Now, as the policy importantly outlines, obstruction of justice is still a criminal charge in New Jersey and can still be charged as appropriate when the facts support it. But the mere fact of holding up a cell phone camera and recording the police at a safe distance without getting in their way, without interfering, without preventing them from undertaking their lawful duties, that's not illegal. That's not obstruction. And so the ACLU had seen that occur in too many cases. We had always been successful in challenging those charges when they were improperly brought, but we saw there was a real problem to fix and a real need for communication and clarity.
Right. So this really provides a framework, and it kind of brings us all together. And so I'm glad you brought up how New Jersey was already in this space, and you brought up accountability and transparency, and that's something that our office has really been pushing forward. So I kind of want to bring in Director O'Hara, who's been patiently waiting over there, but I kind of want to bring you into the discussion because the directive is sort of based on the Newark Police Department's policy adopted in 2019. And could you go into some of the history and the context or the reason for adopting that policy?
Absolutely. Thank you, Bryn. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here with you all and to have the opportunity to talk about this important policy. And thank you to the General for bringing this issue statewide attention, rightfully so, as it is needed. It's needed both for the police officers to ensure that they have the information they need so that they understand what the law actually is in this space, as well as for the community. It's very important because there are actually times where police officers, have inappropriately stopped persons from recording or seized video when they believed they were doing what was actually right. Because police officers are actually, they're out here and they're in a space where, especially years ago, if we think back 20 years ago, it was just the age of still handheld VHS camcorders, that kind of thing. I think as cell phone video became more and more common and folks began showing up on scenes, police officers are oftentimes dealing with folks when they're not in their best appearances, right? Like we're dealing with folks who are in mental health crises. We're dealing with folks who may have been severely injured in some way. And police officers may actually think that they are protecting, victims' privacy rights and so on. So I think that's less common today, but it was certainly something that was new at the time years ago as cell phone videos became, universal. And it's still something that clearly needs some clearly defined rules and to go by. And this ensures that the entire state will be up to snuff with what the standard is. So thank you, General, for doing that. The way this came about, it goes back to the ACLU. In 2010, the ACLU filed a petition in federal court, which cited dozens of lawsuits that were brought against the Newark Police Department in the past. Half of those lawsuits had to deal with issues internally that police employees had filed against the city for discriminatory employment practices, and the other half had to do with violations of people's rights. From that petition, a federal investigation of the department came, and we resulted in a settlement agreement that was signed in 2006 that is commonly referred to as the consent decree. So the consent decree is 77 pages long, and it requires the city of Newark to make dozens of reforms in the area of policy and training for police. And one one area of that covers this issue. Paragraphs 55 through 62 of the consent decree covers persons' First Amendment right to record police activities. From those paragraphs, the department engaged subject matter experts. The ACLU was involved, was a partner with us in this. Also, as well as the Federal Department of Justice, we went back and forth drafting our policy, and then it was presented to the community at community meetings where folks locally here got a chance to provide feedback and actually make some changes to this policy so that people locally here got their fingerprints on it and understood what we were looking to do, and that it was approved by the federal monitor and implemented as the policy of the department. And thankfully, I think Newark is actually, because of that, because of the consent decree, we're a bit ahead of the curve from other places across the country. But I think it's important to know that the consent decree addresses one part of this policy is to ensure that people are able to report the police, because I think like a pattern of issues that the consent decree addresses is inappropriate police conduct when police feel challenged in some way by people in the public, right? So whether it's we don't think you should be able to record us, or arrests that are inappropriate, or those types of things, that's the type of stuff that this policy addresses and ensures that as long as people are lawfully within the viewing area, that there is no threat to evidence at a crime scene, or someone's just refusing to simply move over here where it's safer or something like that. There's no restriction on recording police. But the other thing that this policy addresses that is crucially important, because it happens more and more commonly each day, is sometimes people capture evidence of serious crimes on video, and the police need clear guidance as to what they're supposed to do to get that evidence. And that's what this policy provides, because that's important to ensure that police have what they need to ensure that victims are provided with justice. And it's just, I just think it's incredibly, we're incredibly thankful to the general for making sure that this is standard practice and everyone is informed statewide. So, thank you.
You brought up an amazing point there that about evidence and how this can also be a tool to help and assist law enforcement in solving criminal.
Absolutely, because that's the other half of it. Police know that they have to do their job, but they may not know how to go about it appropriately. And this ensures that well-intentioned officers know exactly what the rules are, to do that.
So now that we're like maybe 2 years in from your policy being adopted, it sounds like, from what you're saying, it was well received by law enforcement and community members alike.
Absolutely.
I just want to give you a chance to address that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just like a lot of other issues with the consent decree, initially when police officers, when they heard about this internally, there was kind of like
change is hard.
Yeah, exactly. But then when they understood that this is stuff that helps you do your job, it definitely very well received without any issues.
Good, thank you. I want to turn back to General Bruck, and as a leader in policing issues, New Jersey has made a lot of progress through the issuance of directives. We're always issuing a directive. Like the new use of force policy that officers are currently training for and goes into effect at the end of this month. Why did you feel that this right to record policy was important to issue as well?
Well, the first and easiest reason is because it's the law, because the First Amendment requires it. And as Tess and Bruck said, courts have consistently held that folks in public have the right to record officers. They have the right to complain about officers. And we want to make sure, we have an obligation to make sure that law enforcement officers across our state are complying with the law. So that was the first reason. But the second reason is because it's the law for a good reason. There's a reason why courts have consistently upheld this, and not just because it's mandated by the Constitution. It's because law enforcement officers are public servants. And law enforcement officers work for the public. They are accountable to the public. They have an obligation to comply with the requirements of the public. And this is a way to ensure that law enforcement officers are held accountable. And by bringing all the stakeholders to the table, including community members as well as law enforcement leaders, we're able to identify a policy that makes sense, and that has broad buy-in, and that actually improves the quality of policing across our state.
Great, wonderful. I want to bring our Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the county in, my home county. I see him getting his mic queued up there. In your role as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the county, Prosecutor Stevens, why is it useful to have a policy clearly laying out the rights of civilians and law enforcement alike when it comes to the First Amendment? So from your vantage point.
Well, thank you, first of all, for including me in the panel. I'm honored to be on this today with everyone. Clearly a lot of work went into putting this directive together and a lot of input from everyone, which is certainly the beginning of having a really fruitful discussion and an impactful directive. It's important really to have not only just for First Amendment rights, but for every right and every policy for it to be clearly articulated because the police, let's face it, policing has changed in the last few years particularly. And maybe not in terms of always having new policies, but just sometimes it requires a clarification of policies for things that people really know to be true. So when we have a clear directive that comes out, I think it gives all law enforcement an opportunity to really understand it, to internalize it, if you will, so that when they're out on the street making split second decisions, they can do so really with a fuller understanding that they are operating in the right way because one, they've been made aware, they've gotten notice of what the policy is so that there's no ambiguity about that. And then also we need to make sure that they're trained properly because training is everything, as you know, in terms of making sure that law enforcement can operate in a very efficient way on the street because they're the ones really on our eyes and ears, the ones on the ground, so to speak. So this effort is one of the very continuing efforts that the Attorney General's office has undertaken in the last couple of years, just to make sure that we're able to crystallize those issues and make them more clear and have a much more effective and impactful and a fair law enforcement department everywhere within the county and the state of New Jersey. So I don't think that there's going to be any resistance. I think a lot of the resistance went away. Basically, we go back to the very beginning of body cameras in the first place and dash cams, which certainly had some pushback. Everybody has got to be very clear about that. But now I think it's universally regarded as having an important impact and can be as beneficial for the police as it is for the community as well. So I think this is just another one of those and to bear some real fruit.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And so I think we've all made a case for why this statewide policy was so important and necessary to move forward with. So I want to move a little bit toward just the collaborative nature that we have with creating the policies that we do from the Attorney General's office. So General Bruck, why is it important to develop policies like this collaboratively?
There's a bunch of reasons. Part of it is because those of us in the AG's office don't have a monopoly on knowledge and expertise. And when we talk to folks outside of our office, we wind up with better policies. But also I think that the process by which we develop policies is really important because if you sit down with everyone, you get their feedback, you hopefully get their buy-in when the policy comes out. And the broader the buy-in, both in law enforcement and community, the more likely it is that it's implemented, the more likely it is that folks are educated about it, and the more likely it is that it's complied with in the long term, that it sticks around, that it becomes an essential part of the culture of law enforcement. And the policy that we rolled out here is sort of the perfect example of that, where this was an issue that was important, it had been rattling around for a while. ISJ and ACLU had the good sense to bring it to our attention and ask us to look into it. And as we recognized how important it was, we were able to turn to the Newark Police Department, which is one of the most creative and innovative law enforcement agencies in our state, where they had already done a policy that was like this. And we could talk to them about how it had worked and get feedback from them. And in talking to Director O'Hara and Prosecutor Stevens, we were able to take their policy and build on it and take it statewide. I think that's exactly how these sorts of policies should be developed, and I hope it's a model for what we can do in the future.
Thank you so much. Does anyone else want to add to that about the collaborative nature of our policies, how important that is?
If I could just add, the ACLU of New Jersey and Institute for Social Justice prepare Know Your Rights presentations and materials all the time. I want to emphasize how powerful it is to have the Attorney General issuing a directive saying, know your rights also. Know your rights, civilians, and know your obligations, officers. And so I just, again, want to commend and highlight, I took a note of the Attorney General's line, it's the law for a good reason. It's the law for a good reason, and we're really glad to have this collaboration and these voices from sort of across the board saying, these are our rights, this is what it means to be able to stand on them, and this is what it means to be able to work with our law enforcement partners to ensure that they know their obligations as well.
Thank you. So, it's great to have this policy in place because that's the first step. But how do we effectively raise awareness about the policy? Now that we have it out, how do we really get to people to let them know and raise their awareness? And we'd like to hear your voices on that. And originally, I was looking toward Bruck Lewis and Tess Borton to kind of lay that out. But I also think that Director O'Hara and Prosecutor Stevens might want to weigh in as well. So we'll start with you two ladies.
Sure, thanks. And that's a really important question, right? Because that's what's it's going to take to make this policy real throughout the state. And as Tess mentioned, the Institute has been really proud to partner with ACLU New Jersey to advocate for this policy, which was ultimately inspired by all the work we've been doing with New Jersey communities. We knew how much it was needed. So over the summer, we did publish a Know Your Rights document. You can find that on the Institute website to help educate people on this right. And we're really looking forward to adding this directive to those efforts. However, I do think it's going to be important for actual police departments throughout the state to educate people they serve about this right, because as we are seeking to increase trust, I think it's going to be really important that police hold themselves accountable by taking those affirmative steps to make sure people are informed about their rights, including this right to report police.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to weigh in? And we're always doing, community engagement in terms of hosting listening sessions, town halls, small group meetings. Prosecutor Stevens we have our 2121 programs where they're hosted across the state. Our county prosecutors' offices on a wide variety of topics, throughout the year. And I'm sure that this will be a topic. I have some ideas going into the new year, especially taking this policy to our youth and making sure that they're aware of it. So I probably will be calling on you for some assistance. Tessa.
Always there for you, Brand, whatever you need, you got that, not a problem.
Yeah.
But also, I think that as representative of the prosecutor's offices, each office has over time developed a cadre of groups and individuals through which they can get information out to the public. For instance, whether an interfaith clergy is a prime example of a group which impacts a lot of individuals on the street level, on the ground level, so to speak. And so we're able to really, we kind of train the trainer kind of an approach. We get it out through them, and then they're able to spread the good news, so to speak, to their constituents as well. Newark has a number of groups, whether it's Newark Street Team or any number of groups which are out there also kind of providing information to the public directly. So I think that that's the step that we all will take, I'm sure, in order to make sure that the public is as informed as possible. And in the long run, I mean, we're all benefiting from that. There's a quote by someone much more eloquent than I who said that basically our actions, speech included, is what holds officials accountable. Holding them accountable is a precondition to enlightened self-government. So that is the ultimate goal here, that we're all able to just have an enlightened government and enlightened law enforcement entity and department. So I think there will be absolute great cooperation from all the prosecutors' offices, certainly in that regard.
Wonderful. So you kind of left us off with a charge. We all have to go back and make sure that we spread the word about this directive and should we meet people where they're at and encourage them to follow up. So at this point in time, I think we're wrapping up today's discussion. I want to thank you all for participating. And as we go into closing remarks, I just want to, again, thank you for accepting the invitation to participate. I want to thank you for coming to the office and advocating so strongly for us to be in this space. Especially in light of all the other work that we're doing. It just really it fell together really nicely. So thank you for that. So I'm going to ask for one final closing thought from each of you. And then we'll have concluding remarks from the Attorney General. We'll start with, how about we'll start in this order? Tess Gordon, then we'll have Brooke Lewis, we'll have Director O'Hara, and Prosecutor Stevens.
Thank you, and thank you again for inviting me to be on this panel, Attorney General for issuing this directive, and participants and attendees for joining us in today's discussion. The Constitution protects civilians' rights to live freely and equitably and justly, and the very First Amendment to that Constitution is what this directive is about. We are really grateful for the clarity that comes from this directive. It's a clear message that is now sent to all residents of New Jersey, including officers, on the contours of the Constitution and how New Jersey can stand for that and even go further. And so we thank in particular Newark for leading the way with its strong policy, which is reflected in the provisions of this directive. I just like to say again, I spoke at the beginning about why this policy was needed, and I named a problem to fix. I also wanted to say this is about something affirmative too. It's not just about corrective action, it's about committing affirmatively to what we stand for. And I think this directive is a clear commitment to moving towards transparent, accountable, and community engaged policing. And we're really grateful for that as a step forward in a really important direction. So thank you all for this important step.
Well said. Thank you, Tess. I'll just add on to that. And again, thank you to the Attorney General as well as everybody on this panel today for raising awareness about this right to record police, which is so necessary for police accountability. And I just want to lift up again for everybody listening, please do take time to read this policy. It's got a lot of great information, and the only way that this policy will be real is if everybody, citizens, police officers, know what the law is, know what their rights are. And so please do read the policy, and feel free to visit either ACLU websites or the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice websites to get more information about what the right to record is. And thank you again.
I think, like Tess was alluding to, I think this is another step forward towards ensuring that we have compassionate, constitutional, and respectful policing in the entire state. And the reality is this is just one issue of many that are around sort of a change in reform in culture in policing. And that's why I'm thankful that we had a tremendous amount of community involvement in shaping this policy in Newark, as well as in the training that we have for this policy. And to that end, I just wanted to mention that the City of Newark is implementing on January 1st of this year, for the first time ever, we're going to be sending the entire department for retraining an entire week at a time. And we're thankful that we have the commitment of our mayor here to do that, because that's no easy or inexpensive task, right? So every police officer in Newark is going to be retrained. They're going to go to the academy for an entire week, and this will be one of the topics that's covered. But it's also going to address every other topic that's important around this reform issue, right? Addressing issues around response to resistance, ensuring our officers are using force appropriately, as the Attorney General mentioned, issues around search and seizure, implicit bias in policing. all those types of things that are important. We're even going to be retraining everyone on, conducting CPR and providing first aid and bleeding control, because those are all issues around having constitutional, compassionate, and respectful policing, which is what everyone in the city and the state deserves. So we're thankful to have been a part of this process.
So glad to hear that by the director, because it's all about training in terms of law enforcement. As far as I'm concerned, I'm sure he is concerned as well. Rights and responsibilities of the public must be made known to everyone and must be accorded the proper respect that they deserve. As we all know, rights are not always just totally unbridled, and in instances where the police officer's safety is in question or there's evidence to be gathered, it's good that the director deals with those issues directly as well, and we're able to really make a clear discernment with the proper training so the officers know how to go about those instances as well. What we are dedicated as every prosecutor's office is to make sure that the public is aware of the differences and certainly of their rights, so that everyone can be that enlightened force that we're all striving to be.
Well, there's very little that I have to add beyond what Tess, Bruck, the director, and the prosecutor had to say. I am so proud to be working with all of you on projects like this. It's enormously important, and I think it's very clear from this conversation that we were committed to doing this directive, but that we really see the directive as the first step. That we have a policy, but now we need to make it real. We need to make sure that we educate both the community and law enforcement on it. And you have my commitment and the commitment of this office that we're going to do that, and we're going to work with our law enforcement partners across the state to ensure that that's the case. We are truly committed to making New Jersey a national leader on policing policy, and work like this is a great example about how we do that and what we'll continue doing. So thanks so much, and appreciate everyone joining us today.
Thank you. That concludes our program.
Hit the lights! Everybody about to get killed out here. Like it for everybody. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's the Resistance. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Wow, well, that was kind of eventful. Shout out to Luke Weymouth UK, Buttermeat Pancake, Mr. Imperial, Perfect Sense When Needed, Kenny Powers, Wolfie Gladly, Accountability Inspector, Scrubzilla, Streets of Gold, District Kurt, K. Stevenson, Journey's Wake, Rose M. Appreciate y'all. That was kind of short. I thought they was going to be taking remarks from the people who are viewing virtually. This was a virtual town hall meeting, so to speak. I know Wolfie was waiting to get up there to ask some questions. I mean, they said that this webinar ended for the day, so I'm wondering if there's going to be more to this. Hopefully, I mean, this was just kind of like a generalized overview of the right to record. It wasn't nobody was stomping their feet or putting the hammer down, so to speak, about recording. It was just a general overview, in my opinion. If I'm wrong, check me in the comments. Rosem says, no questions taking, no nothing, figures. Swedish Sugar, she said, awesome show as always, Resistance. Much love for you. I try to bring it to y'all. I don't know if this, done any justice for anybody. I mean, they didn't make it public. They made it public, but they didn't put it out there for the public to see. You guys didn't know about it. Hopefully, I'm pretty sure the majority of Artie's corporate fiction. He says it's in relation to the latest directive issued by the New Jersey AG, 2021-11. Wolfie Gladly said it was too basic. Artie's corporate fiction. He found some literature in relation to this. It's in relation to the latest directive issued by the NJAJ. K. Stevens said, narrows their excuses in poor policing. That's interesting. And like I said, just basic general overview. I thought they were going to kind of like, have people up there who are going to, fight to record. I don't know. It was kind of weak in my eyes. It was kind of weak. They could have just gave out pamphlets. Like I said, it's public, but I'm pretty sure everybody in New Jersey didn't know about it. Not even half of New Jersey. We had to dig for it. I don't know. Now, tell me what y'all think. WW Goddess of Truth M said, will the webinar be posted online somewhere to rewatch it? I don't know, but you can rewatch it on my channel. It's going to be up on my channel, the Resistance channel. If you want to rewatch it, you come right here. And after you rewatch it, you can do this.
It's a very psychological thing that's happening here.
Yes. There's some very psychological things going on around here. Shout out to everybody in the chat once again. I'm going to drop the link real quick if you want to come up here and talk about it. If not, within the next few minutes, I'll be signing out. There we go. Link is dropped. Read some more of these comments. Mr. Imperial said, eventful. It was a waste of time. Shame on those hypocrites. I was just trying to be nice, Mr. Imperial. Don't knock me. I was just trying to be nice. Buttermeat Pancake. Don't we already legally have the right to record as long as it is in a public setting? Yes, we do. And it seemed like they were just refreshing us with that. Got Mr. Imperial in the background. What's up, bro? Mr. Imperial, can you hear me? All right. I'm going to mute Mr. Imperial. Maybe he has to get some things together. But when he does, he could just unmute his mic and come right on in. You can chime right on in, buddy, when you get your thanky thing together. Anthony Mulhan. Sup. What's going on? Yeah, we was just covering something in New Jersey. The right to record virtual town hall meeting. Virtual town hall. Shout out to Sophie Gladly.
What's up, yo? That shit was weak as fuck, bro. I wanted to hear an explanation about how these cops would be punished if they did violate this directive. I didn't hear none of that.
Right. That's what
They say accountability, accountable. How? Tell me how. How are they going to be held accountable? Are you going to suspend them without pay? Are you going to tell me?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure those were some of the questions that you had. But let me ask you, what were your original questions that you wanted to get up there and hit them with?
Well, one of my original questions was addressed, and it's called 2021-15? 11? 2021-11, I think? Something, whatever the fuck it is.
Dash 11. Yeah, you're talking about the one that Artie's Corporate Fiction put up?
Yeah, it's 2021-11.
11.
Yeah.
I got it up there.
So now I can now anybody in New Jersey can reference that. If they don't understand, which they probably won't, because they won't make it abundantly clear to anybody. Cops do what they want, and they're so used to it. It's going to take years for them to realize, and lawsuits for them to realize that this 2021-11 AG's directive exists.
Shout out to Mr. Imperial. You able to get through? Testing 1, 2, Mr. Imperial. All right, he has some more technical situations. Go ahead, Wolfie.
Oh no, that's all. I just think it was very weak, very basic. There's a question and answer portion on that Zoom meeting. I asked a question, they never addressed it. I followed up and said, "You never addressed my question. How you keep saying accountable? How will these people be held accountable if they violate the Attorney General's directive?" Never got back to me on that question. It's there for them to read and say, "This person asks this," you know.
Right. Shout out to Swedish Sugar. Have a good day. Artie's corporate fiction. He says the point of the directive is to educate law enforcement on a citizen's right to record police in New Jersey. It's explicitly directed to law enforcement. I guess he's speaking of the 2021-11. He said that's strictly for law enforcement.
Yeah, that one is strictly for law enforcement. There's many more directives, and they're all focused on us to keep us to unconstitutionalize us. There's a lot of directives that are unconstitutional. This one happens to be a constitutional one that applies to the police. I don't know. My question got answered.
Can you hear me?
I just wanted to have a reference point because for 3 years, there was no reference.
Wait a minute,
There was
Wolfie.
no 148G or something like that I could tell a cop for New Jersey.
1 second, Wolfie. I got Mr. Imperial in. I just want to let him know I hear him. What's up, bro?
Hey.
How you doing? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish, Wolfie. I just wanted to let you know Mr. Imperial was in. Go ahead, finish.
No, all I'm saying is there was no reference to throw at a police officer in New Jersey that I can record them. I've been doing it for 3 years in New Jersey. There's nothing like 148G in California. There's nothing that specifies the recording of police activity. And finally, we at least have a directive to say, hey man, 2021-11. Now there's also 2021-5, which requires all NJ police to wear a body cam and have it turned on when interacting with the public. That's fairly new too. It's only 6 away, 6 directives behind it. So, so I guess they're making some kind of strides, but that meeting was very basic. They didn't get into anything. I didn't like the host, Bryn, whoever she was. She was unprofessional the way she conducted the interview. I'm pretty sure the resistance could have handled that panel a whole lot more professionally. It was sloppy.
Mr. Imperial was questioning her position. Who was she? We don't even know who she is. You have any idea where her background is?
I can find out right now. Hold on. I got the thing still posted up. Let me look at it.
Okay.
Is this it? No, this is it over here. Panelists: Theodore Stevens, that was the prosecutor. Brian O'Hara, Bruck, Tess Borden. No, they don't even list her freaking name on featured panelists. Her name was Bryn, Bryn, and she's not mentioned anywhere.
Can we call somebody? Find out who she was?
Yeah, you could call up the Attorney General's office in New Jersey. It's still open.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to do it too because I want to find out how these people are going to be held accountable. You keep saying this is going to hold the police accountable, for messing with people who are recording traffic stops like Darnella Frazier was during the George Floyd shit. But how? How is it going to hold them accountable? They never even attempted to explain it. They just throw the word accountability out there and everything's all better. That's a Band-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
Bullshit.
Yeah, that was very light. That was Bud Light right there we had for the past
That was
45
minutes. That's what that was.
Mm-hmm. It was like, we're doing the right thing.
I mean, really, what was that? I mean, they didn't really do anything, at least not that I saw. They didn't show any active
abundantly clear,
support for individual rights, they weren't really doing anything, were they?
Nah.
No, they just
I
pretty
certainly didn't
much.
see anything.
To me, it looked
I
like
didn't
they
see
came
any
on here
action.
and said,
All I saw was just their ineffective,
we're good people and we want to hold
their
bad cops
ineffective
accountable.
ways, and come on, that's
This is what I saw.
absolutely hypocritical. For what
Yeah,
they're
this is
doing.
what I saw. We're
they
good
say they're
people.
part of the people. They said they're trying to fight for us, but in the end of the day, they just talk.
They're all
That's all they
Satan
are.
worshippers.
Just talk.
They're all Satan worshippers. We're good people and we're going to do the right thing.
At least
but they
that's
don't
how
tell
I
us
feel.
how. They don't tell us how we're going to do the right
I don't know
thing.
about you, but yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
They were very vague. It was, I mean, everything they said, I knew. I thought they were going to put down the hammer like, okay, we're really enforcing this right to record with all police officers. They're going to have to know that they cannot interfere with a private citizen recording. These are the steps that we're going to take with proper training. These are the accountability that we're going to take if this, you know, if they continue to violate people's rights. That's what I was waiting to hear. I wanted
Cops
to hear
know.
Details.
Cops know. They know exactly what they're doing. They're violating our rights constantly. And they're doing it just out of spite. I swear.
I wanted to hear the deets. I wanted to hear
We
the
don't
details.
need more training. We already have a lot of our police, our taxpayers' money that's invested in the police, and we don't need more towards that. What? That does not solve the problem. Money does not solve everything. It certainly doesn't solve our problem.
And if you call the OAG's office, all they're going to do is say, oh,
at least I don't think
we don't have somebody to talk to you right now. We need to get our public speaker to talk to you and all this other bullshit, you know?
Well, I got the number for the, you said the Attorney General?
Yeah, the OAG. The office
Which
of
one, the
OAG.
state or the federal?
You want to try it?
No, for the state of New Jersey. Yeah, try it out. Call them up. But we just have simple questions. We're not going to be mean or nothing.
So I called the Attorney General, West Wing, 25 Market Street, Trenton, right?
That sounds about right, yeah.
Attorney General is not answering. This mailbox is full and cannot accept new messages. To disconnect, to enter another number.
Are you serious?
Of course it's full.
It can't even receive messages? They don't pick up and it can't receive messages? That's government, man. Hide as much as you can. Hide. Behind phones and computers and emails that you never email. Never email you back. They never call you back. They never answer the phone.
Shout outs to Scrubzilla. He said $100, they send you the voicemail. Well, I give them an E for effort for the attempt. For vaguely trying to let the residents of New Jersey know what's going on. But somebody in their chat said that you could have just gave out pamphlets. This is not, this is not really. Nobody's able to to weigh on what they said, to make any remarks. So,
yeah, all right, nobody has a voice. We don't have a voice. That's what that tells me. Shout
outs to Wolfie Gladly, yo. We got Mr. Imperial in the house. Shout outs to him as well.
Yo.
Wolfie gave I was privy to this information earlier this week because Wolfie had posted it on his community wall. And I said, oh, this is gonna be good. Not as good as I thought it would be. But y'all still seen it. We were able to join in and talk about it a little bit. Wolfie, check back to see if they're going to be speaking more about this.
They won't.
You said they will?
They won't. This is it. That was a one-shot, 15-minute fucking thing. It's crazy.
One in time, huh?
Yeah, maybe it was a half hour.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That's crazy, man. Whatever. We'll
I
see what
wonder.
happens. At least
I wonder what brought this. I would like to wonder what brought this to the forefront. What made them even speak about this? I can only think of one. I can only think of one thing, or maybe I should say one name. Wolfie Glad.
Well, they tried to, when they talked about it, they kept on trying to emphasize that it was the ACLU. When we damn well know the ACLU doesn't give a fuck about us. They only care about um, racial politics at work or sexual harassment at work and all that other shit. They don't care about recording cops. They never did.
Right. Shout out to Level Wise to see. She said, I swear that white boy was recorded. I was thinking the same, was pre-recorded. Say, I swear that white boy was pre-recorded. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, did they pre-record this?
It seemed it right from the very beginning. It seemed like it.
Yeah. I didn't want to say nothing. I didn't want to spoil the webinar, but I'm like, wait a minute. Did they put this together a couple of days ago and just? That's really crazy. If that's the case,
they pretty much they put it together the way Taya does. You ever see Taya's channel? Taya's channel does the same thing. Where it's
I think they just did that just to pacify.
No, it's almost like
just to say
a
that
rapper
they're at least making an effort. Honestly,
a rapper makes like
kind of insulting.
The rapper puts down his bars in the studio, and then he sends them over to Janet Jackson to sing over it. They never even meet
But that's the government for you. Never trust it.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's almost like Snoop Dogg does a track with.
Never trust it or rely on it because eventually they will screw you over.
Snoop Dogg does a track with Wyclef Jean, and they never even have to meet each other to put the track together. They just send over the lyrics, and they put the video together afterwards. Like they look at what he says, and then they ask accordingly. Yeah. Everybody else seemed to be live though.
Yeah, because his voice was off track, and his audio was off track with the visual. But I don't know.
That's psyops for you, bro.
Shout out to Kenny Powers. Kenny Powers. Host was a cable TV producer. He's asking. Host was a cable TV producer. We don't know. We can't. Wolfie tried to find out who she was. We don't know.
Yeah, I have no clue. But she was sloppy. She was a sloppy DJ of the panel. She was being like, she was like, yeah, I forget what the hell she said. I typed it in your chat. I was pointing out things that she was saying. It was just so unprofessional. The way she was talking and shit. She was just all relaxed, like she was talking to her homies and shit. She was fucked up.
All right, Wolf, any last words? We got 3 minutes. I'm going to let you, Mr. Imperial, get the last word on. I'm going to get up on out of here.
I ain't got nothing more. Let Imperial go.
Mr. Imperial, it's on you, bro.
What do you want me to say?
Any last words? I got 2 minutes left. However you feel about the webinar today.
It was pathetic. Mm-hmm. It was an insult for our government to say the things that just to pacify us and say that they're making an effort. I think that was pathetic and just insulting. But hey, it happens everywhere all the time, and I'm not that surprised. That's how I feel about what happened.
Yeah, it was sad. But I appreciate y'all coming up on the panel talking about it. I appreciate everybody in the chat joining in. It's just, another way of looking at our government on how they try to act like they're giving us information, but it's just basically generalized. Same shit, watered down, pointless. Okay, I guess we can agree that was pointless because there was no substance to that, just general overview of what we already know. But it is what it is. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all. Wolfie, man, have a good day. Mr. Imperial, y'all, you have a good day as well.
You too.
Later, man.
Thank you.
Yep. Shout outs to everybody in the chat. I'm going to run it down one more time. One more time for y'all. Shout outs Kenny Powers. Kenny Powers. Scrubzilla. K. Stevenson. Perfect sense when needed. Level eyes to see. Electro Cow. Joan Short. Rose M. Sweet as sugar. Jay Damasi. Artie's Corporate Fiction. Thanks for weighing in. WW Goddess of Truth M. Karen Cat. Anthony Mahan. Wolfie Gladley Accountability Inspector. Streets of Gold. Journey's Wake. Mr. Imperial. Y'all make sure y'all stay safe out there. Y'all see some police doing some egregious shit, pull out your camera and record it. Shout out to Butter Me Pancake. Butter Me Pancake. Melissa Middleton. District Kurt. Emma McBride. Mike Jones. Pi 180. Hit the lights! Everybody about to get killed out here. Like it forever.